Round 3 of the FIDE World Cup 2023 sees two Indians pitted against each other. SL Narayanan with a rating of 2656 takes on Gukesh, who has just become India number 1, and it's his first game after surpassing Vishy Anand. Let's see how it goes. Pawn up to e4 by Narayanan, and Gukesh, will he go for a Sicilian, which is his main opening, and he's played it against Iskandarov in the previous round. We saw the Sveshnikov Sicilian. No, Gukesh remains very solid. He plays e4, e5. It's also a wise decision when you're playing the first game of the mini match of 2 games to be very solid. And then a draw with black could be a very good result, and then you want to press as white. But SL Narayanan is not someone you can take lightly. The Spanish on the board, he's a very strong player, and he plays bishop b5, the Rui Lopez. Let's see how Gukesh faces it. Will he play the Berlin? No, he goes for a6. And Narayanan pulls back his bishop to a4. Games between Narayanan and Gukesh tend to be high on complications because both players thrive on calculations. And Narayanan himself said that if he manages to calculate well, he should do well against Gukesh, because Gukesh anyway is an excellent calculator. Now castles by Narayanan. Gukesh goes for the Archangels variation with bishop to c5. This is the very sharp variation where you don't put your bishop on e7 but rather place it on a more active square on c5. Now c3 played. You want to play d4. Gukesh hits it with the move b5. And now white has the choice whether you want to drop back the bishop to b3 or c2. Narayanan goes to b3, and Gukesh now most likely will play the move d6. Yes, that's the move. The reason you play d6 is that so that if the opponent plays d4, you can simply drop back the bishop and your center is very stable. But Narayanan hits the flank with a4. If you look at the time, both players have 1 hour 32 minutes on their clock, which means they are well prepared, and Gukesh also makes this move pretty quickly, which means he's still in his preparation. So bishop to b7, and now the main move here is d4. But Narayanan only pushes his pawn 1 square, and this can take his opponent slightly by surprise. And you can see Gukesh has been now thinking for the last 15 minutes. He plays his bishop back to b6. This is not a great move. In fact, in this position, h6 would have been a much better move. But bishop b6, and now already white is better. Narayanan takes the pawn. You can see how a small little inaccuracy in the opening, which is kind of imperceptible, leads to a big problem. We will see how that happens. First, Narayanan chops off the rook, and yeah, you can take with the bishop or the queen, but both moves have their drawbacks. And Gukesh is taking his time here to figure out which way to take. He takes with the bishop. Now the b5 pawn is slightly weak, so knight to a3 would be a very good move, and Narayanan finds it. Knight a3, good move on the board. Now you can go passive with knight a7, but even there, after c4, b4, knight c2, white is clearly better. So Gukesh goes for the more active approach with b4, but with this he has given up the c4 square, and the knight simply jumps there. Good move, hitting the bishop. You don't want to be losing your bishop in this sort of semi-open position. That could be a big advantage to white to have the bishop pair. So Gukesh plays bishop a7, and you can look at the clock. He's kind of struggling, 47 minutes. Now one way to take advantage here is to take the pawn, knight takes, and give a check here. That would be very irritating, and it's not easy to meet it. So cb4, definitely a move, and Narayanan plays the other good move in the position, which is bishop g5, pinning the knight. And if you were to kick the bishop away, bishop h4, you should not go g5, because then, oh, he plays it. He plays h6, and Narayanan will most likely pull back his bishop. But if Gukesh plays g5, then knight takes g5, h takes g5, bishop g5 is a very deadly sacrifice. So will Gukesh be tempted by g5 move? We have to see, because in a way g5 also weakens the f5 square. Oh, he plays it. He plays his pawn up to g5 and Narayanan can actually snatch that pawn, but he instantly plays bishop g3, which is also a fine move. It's not a problem, but taking there would have been so much more interesting. Fine, white is still clearly better. The f5 square is now weak. Gukesh castles. Here white needs to be very active, and one way to get that activity is to push the pawn to h4 and then somehow play in this way in the center. But he goes rook e1. I can understand why Narayanan did this. Maybe he wants to play d4 and wants his pawn to be protected. Gukesh takes on c3 and you can take back now with the pawn b takes c3. White's position is preferable, but he should be careful about making slow moves, because then black can equalize. There's nothing inherently wrong about black's position apart from the fact that his king is slightly weak and that his pieces are not very ideally posted. So d4 would be a good move. Bishop b7, and now for sure Narayanan must go d4. Here it would be in the spirit of the position. He's taking his time. He's down to 45 minutes, but no, knight e3 is too slow. He is looking at the f5 square, which is logical, but Gukesh will cover it with knight e7. And now you cannot play d4 because then your e4 pawn is hanging. Knight e7. You can see Gukesh now kind of moving with more confidence. He knows that his position makes more sense. So Narayanan, still slightly better, maybe would want to play h4 at some point, but he goes h3. And with couple of slow moves like, rook e1, knight e3, h3, he's kind of given up his edge. And Gukesh now makes a kind of interesting decision. He gives up his bishop for the knight, which was looking at the f5 square, and tells Narayanan that he is completely fine now with him having the bishop pair, because his bishop on g3 is not very active. So rook takes here. And will Gukesh start to rest over the initiative? He goes knight to g6. And this knight is looking now at the f4 square. Maybe now Narayanan breaks in the center, but the position has simplified a bit. He comes back with his rook to e1. And we are at move number 22 right now, with both players having 35 minutes and 26 minutes to reach to move number 40. Gukesh can go king g7. No, he goes queen d7. And now white can actually maneuver his knight to this square on f5. And one idea is to do it this way. The other is to do it this way. But maybe starting it off with knight h2, knight f1, knight e3, knight f5 would have been a better idea. But Narayanan goes straight with that plan with knight d2. Gukesh starts playing on the queen side with rook to b8. You can continue with knight f1, but I'm sure that Gukesh has something up his sleeve there. So Narayanan goes d4, and at this point the move does not pack a punch, because d takes e5, d takes e5, the pawn is already well secured. So it's not really such a dangerous move, and Gukesh plays c5, trying to provoke white to take a decision, because if white plays the move d5, then Gukesh is very happy with that position. It's stabilized and his position is good. Narayanan goes bishop to c2, and maybe he's wanting Gukesh to take a decision there in the center, because if he takes twice, then I'm sure that Narayanan is very happy here with the knight jumping in. d6 is weak. So Gukesh does take it once on d4. Narayanan takes back with his pawn, and I don't think Gukesh is going to take here. It's important to maintain this kind of wall-like structure against the bishop on g3. And Gukesh goes queen to c7. With this move, he is looking at the bishop, which is slightly loose. Knight f1 does make sense, but Narayanan goes knight f3. Again, solid chess. Everything is protected. He's trying to put pressure on e5 point, but now I think knight to h5, hitting the bishop is a very logical move. Gukesh finds it and he plays it there. If you try to hang on to the bishop with bishop h2, then the knight sits very strongly on the f4 square. So maybe Narayanan doesn't do it. He takes on e5 here, and maybe now knight takes g3. Yeah, takes here. And if you try to be very smart and take e takes d6, then after queen c5 you are in trouble, because you can no longer take the knight. It is pinned. So it's important to take back. He takes back, f takes on g3, and now Gukesh can recapture the pawn with his pawn. D takes e5. The position has simplified quite a bit, with pawns now on only one side of the board. White's advantage has passed. Black is fine, but not at all better. The position is equal, and Gukesh now, this is the 30th move. There is a 30 move rule in this tournament for not offering a draw. He makes his move bishop c8. Generally, when players want to offer a draw, they make a move and then offer a draw. But at this point, Gukesh makes a move. He's thinking, his opponent is thinking, and then while they are both in thought, he suddenly feels that his position is not that great, and he offers a draw there and writes down on the score sheet. It's very said it in a very soft way, but he did offer a draw there. And Narayanan, let's see how he responds. He agrees instantly. 30 moves have been done, and so a draw can be agreed to. The game ends in a draw. It was quite a tense encounter, I would say, but at some point I feel Narayanan played 2-3 slow moves which let his advantage slip by. Gukesh defended quite well, but his opening was not so great. He'll have the white pieces in game 2 and will try to finish off the match in classical time control, but Narayanan will fight tooth and nail, and this will be a very interesting battle to watch out for, with both the players at the top of their games.